How's it going, and welcome to a new series on the channel, Links to the Past. Thanks Scott for the name suggestion. The Zelda series is full of awesome backstories and lore, and a lot of the time it's hard to appreciate the detail and scope of these backstories when you're playing the game. So I thought it'd be fun to start a new series, Links to the Past, showcasing some of these awesome tales from Hyrule's history in detail. Starting off with one of my favourites today, the Siege of Akkala Citadel, the Kingdom of Hyrule's last stand. If you like this kind of video, drop a like to show your support on it, or if you're new and you want more, subscribe. So without further ado, let's travel back to the history of Hyrule, with one of the greatest tragedies the kingdom ever saw. The Akkala Citadel ruins in Breath of the Wild are what remains of a once great fortress, the ghost of a stronghold built to defend Hyrule, second only in sheer scale to Hyrule Castle itself. It now stands as a lifeless husk, overrun with corrupted guardians, malice and bokoblins, the Akkala Sheikah Tower piercing through the centre of the fort's ruin like a lance through its heart, from where it burst through when Link activated the Plateau Tower. But the Akkala Citadel wasn't always in this state. Hundreds of years before Breath of the Wild, this fortress stood as the single most impregnable, indomitable bastion the kingdom had ever seen. The citadel was built long ago at the border of the Akkala region, atop a ridge of high cliffs which stretched from northwest to northeast, which provided a natural barrier from attacks. It was likely originally used as a line of defence against invaders from overseas, when they landed on the beaches of Akkala and moved west towards the heavily populated central Hyrule. They would have to pass the might of the Akkala Citadel in order to reach the greater part of the kingdom. The entrance to the citadel is facing southwest, so for an attacker coming from the sea to the east, they'd have to travel the whole way round in order to reach it. For a seafaring enemy just landed in Akkala, there are two main paths to take in order to get to central Hyrule from the region. The first is travelling north of the expansive Lake Akkala, then to a treacherous thin road north of the citadel. This would prove fatal for nearly any army. They'd be forced to march through the Tauren wetlands, then bottleneck into a very thin line when travelling along the mountain pass north of the citadel, all the while being assaulted by archers from the fortification. Even if most of the army didn't meet their ends in the marshy terrain of the wetlands, the pass north of the citadel is brutal, with tall cliffs on either side and a clear shot from the stronghold from which the archers could fire volley after volley of arrows, using a near endless supply from the citadel's vast storerooms. And if any defending force from the citadel rode out to meet the invaders, the attackers would have to fight their way up a steep hill almost in single file. If the enemy decided to take the other route, south of Lake Akkala, they'd have an easier time until they approached the citadel. There wouldn't be a marsh within bowshot distance, but when they approached Akkala Citadel, they'd have to face the might of its cannons. The citadel is the only fortification in Hyrule where cannons can be found, meaning that, aside from the Sheikah's ancient technology, they were likely the strongest and rarest weapons in the entire kingdom, and Akkala Citadel has 12 of them, broken up into 3 batteries of 4 each. Once the enemy passed Sokala Bridge, they'd be within firing range of Battery 3, 4 cannons on a plateau with clear view of the oncoming enemy. Whatever managed to make it through this onslaught would then enter the most dangerous area of the fortification, the parade grounds. This clearing is enclosed on all sides with steep cliffs, so the enemy has 2 options: retreat and suffer more losses at the hands of Battery 3, or continue forwards into an area with 2 overlapping fields of fire from Batteries 1 and 2. Battery 1 from the top of the citadel with a view of the entire clearing would be able to clearly target any enemy and obliterate it with rounds of cannon fire. Battery 2 below provided crossfire for the first, destroying whatever was left. Akkala Citadel was famous throughout the kingdom as an impregnable fortress, showcasing the kingdom's military might. Being built on tall cliffs in such a heavily fortified location, and having such formidable firepower, made it completely unfathomable that any enemy could lay siege to it and come out victorious. But looking at the citadel in Breath of the Wild, its ruins say otherwise. When the Calamity Ganon resurfaced, 100 years before the game, the impenetrable castle finally fell, and with it, the kingdom of Hyrule was extinguished. When the Calamity Ganon appeared 100 years before Breath of the Wild, the kingdom was ready for it. An army of mechanical soldiers, the Guardians, and 4 behemoth divine beasts were stationed ready to take down the beast whenever it showed itself, with weapons beyond the imagination of the Hylian people. But in a cruel twist of fate, the Calamity turned the Guardians on the kingdom they protected, corrupting them with its malice. Possessed by its evil spirit, the Guardians began to pour outwards from Hyrule Castle, first destroying Castletown, then the towns and settlements in Hyrule Field, before spreading outwards to the rest of the kingdom. Hyrule's soldiers, completely outmatched and terrified, their king dead and their kingdom ruined, fled eastwards from the castle, likely taking with them civilians from the town, with one thing in mind. One thing that could save them from this godlike, invincible army of machines: the impenetrable fortress of Akkala Citadel. The soldiers of the kingdom that survived the slaughter at the castle and made it to the citadel began frantically preparing for siege, manning the cannons, lining archers along the walls. Those who could not fight were likely hidden deep within the citadel, with the soldiers manning all defences, waiting for the first sign of the oncoming foe. Though the Guardians would be approaching from the wrong way, from Greater Hyrule in the west to Akkala in the east, instead of east to west like the Citadel was designed for, the corrupted Sheikah army would still be bottlenecked as they travelled over Akkala Span and Akkala Bridge in order to make it to the Citadel itself. The fortress was designed to be defensible from all possible methods of assault, including an attack from central Hyrule. If there was one thing that could save the lives of the remaining Hylian soldiers now, it would be this fortress. Finally, Guardians were spotted on the horizon, from the high vantage point of the Citadel. Cannons were aimed, bows drawn, fear swallowed as the technological terrors advanced on the fortress. We don't know many details of the ensuing battle, but we know the result. Despite the soldiers being fortified in the mighty Citadel, this was one of the most tragic massacres Hyrule has ever seen. Akkala Citadel is an indomitable structure if assaulted by men, cavalry, or any other conventional soldier. But the Guardians aren't conventional. They do not tire, and the rain of countless arrows can simply bounce off their thick armour. And while the return fire from an enemy archer would do nothing to the Citadel, the return fire from the powerful laser of a Guardian, the focused sacred energy of the goddesses, could destroy men and stone alike with ease. The Guardians approached the Citadel from the southwest, pouring into the area en masse. The small defensive encampment at the fork in the road was completely flattened under the corrupted Sheikah advance. Some crossed the 2 bridges and assaulted the fortress head-on, while others took the southern road across the parade ground to climb the stronghold from the south face. Despite the huge number of possessed machines, the soldiers of Hyrule wouldn't go down without a fight. Though the main route the Guardians took meant the Citadel's mighty cannons were next to useless, the soldiers fired back with volleys of arrows. Many would have barely dented the plating on the Guardians, yet direct hits to the machine's eyes could slow them or even outright kill them. The blue light of Guardian fire licked the dark skies, competing with the heavy orange bursts of cannon fire from the Citadel's first and second batteries, resulting in the destruction of countless Guardians as well as parts of the ancient stonework of the fortress. At some point during the dark hours of this battle, the Akkala Bridge was destroyed. Perhaps a stray Guardian laser struck it, or perhaps the soldiers themselves, in a frantic bid to stop any more of the oncoming tide of Guardians reaching the Citadel, turned their cannons on it. Guardian remains litter the ground beneath, along with broken pieces of stonework where it fell. The main entrance of the fortress too is blocked with rubble and dirt, perhaps to seal it off and prevent further onslaught. The true details of what happened that night is long forgotten, with only the litter of ruined Guardian shells, malice, and the silent empty halls of the Citadel to tell the tale. Though the remaining military strength of the Kingdom of Hyrule fell back to the mighty Akkala Citadel, their efforts to defend themselves against the endless hordes of gargantuan machines were ultimately in vain. The fortress was designed, and the soldiers trained, to defend against monsters or people, and so the might and sheer number of the Guardians overwhelmed them. With the deaths of the last soldiers, their kingdom fell with them, crushed into the dirt by the many shunting legs of corrupted Sheikah titans. So there's the first episode of Links to the Past, covering the history and the siege of Akkala Citadel. The Zelda games, Breath of the Wild especially, have so much lore and in-depth backstories, and it's world-building elements like these that make me fall in love with the games. If you like this video, show your support with a like, and let me know what other Zelda lore you'd like to see me cover. If you want more Zelda and Smash Bros content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.